Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 90. In this episode, I speak with actor Samuel Selman. I met Samuel out here in Los Angeles, and we've been talking about doing this podcast for a while, and tonight we finally made it happen. Samuel is a really great guy, has a fascinating story, and I'm really excited for you to hear our conversation. The book of the episode is going to be Willpower by Roy Baumeister and John Tierney. I picked this book as book of the episode because Samuel is very disciplined. We talked a lot about discipline in the conversation, so I thought it was very fitting for this episode. Again, book of the episode, Willpower. If you want to listen to the podcast, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to watch the podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. Here's my conversation with Samuel. Samuel Selman, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here, finally.
Oh, I know, yeah. Finally on my end here.
No. Both of us.
It's just, it's one of those, we're going to do it. Schedules and busy and timing. But it was actually Eric here. Eric, say what up.
What up?
Eric's play, because I had seen you maybe a couple months prior, and you were so basically you're on the list. It's like, okay, we got to get to this, and then Samuel's up. But then I saw you at the play Eric was in, and then I already I'm like, okay, it's time. Set the date. Let's do it. Here we are. So thank you for coming.
Of course.
How have you been?
Good. I've been good, man. I've been good. You know how LA life is. Everything's moving fast. So, just taking it a day at a time and, just trying to be the best me. So.
Moving fast is the right way to put it. There's some day I have to, her name's Dr. Natalie Pedohoff. She was on here. She coined drinking from a fire hose.
Yeah, right?
Especially out here in LA, I really feel that's what a lot of us are doing constantly. No matter if someone's just concentrating on acting or making films or whatever they're doing, every person I talk to, they're working on like 10 things. So I'm like, oh, okay, good. I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, right? It's like if you're not working on like multiple things and you're just like waiting on something, sometimes it just messes with your mind because everything is so fast here and everybody else is always working on something. So it kind of makes you feel like you're not doing as much as you should or can. And then B, that's just the nature of the game. Like nothing, while it feels like everything's happening overnight, it's not. And so a lot of things just take a long time some time to, line up and finally get developed and finally like get put into progress. So by working on multiple things at once, you're getting like, okay, this is going to line up. And then finally, then I'll be able to do that. And then when that ends, I'll be able to do that. And so just to keep that flow and to keep yourself busy and to not like get down about how sometimes stagnant this industry can feel if you're just in your slump, you just got to stay creative and stay active.
So what are some things you do like when in the slower times when you're not as busy?
Well, right now, so I've been in school for a while. So I have a degree in VFX, but I'm back in school for post-production. And obviously I'm still at Playhouse West. I'm doing classes there. And one of the recent things I've also actually had picked up as well to keep myself busy is Muay Thai. So I've just picked that up as well. So right now I've just been kind of busy just trying to manage all of that because I'm looking at trying to fight in either June or August. We'll see if I can cut enough weight and then we'll go with that. But I've been pretty busy since I came out here. But in the slow times, that's when you take the time to create your own creativity or express your own creativity. Because so much of the time we're working on other people's projects or reading other people's scripts. And there is a creativity to that, to taking on a character and getting that exploration of that character. But I think it's important for creators of any type, whether you're an actor, producer, writer, whatever it is, director, to then take time aside and explore your own creativity, your own ideas, your own thoughts and things like that. I think there's so many different ways to go about it, but like to have your own release is a very important thing to have.
I'm really glad you said that. I've actually been feeling that lately.
Yeah.
Even some old artistic projects that I hadn't done in a while, finding myself getting drawn to them again. And part of me was asking myself, am I doing this to look for a distraction? Am I doing this just to kill time? But I think part of it's that release you're talking about. I never thought of it like that. Just because when you get concentrating on one thing for so long, sometimes you do need to step away, no matter how much progress or how much, it's working what you're doing. It's like, okay, I need to exercise some other muscles here creatively and then come back to that, if that makes sense at all.
Yeah. I mean, of course. And especially too, it's like, when you're in this industry, there's just so much that's going on inside of you, but everything is moving so fast that sometimes you don't take that time to look at it. And it can sometimes feel like, oh, I'm breaking down as this character, I'm doing this as this person. And so you feel like you're getting this emotional release, but in the same vein, like that's not really you. Right. And so when you are then creating your own projects or just expressing your own thoughts and feelings creatively, I feel like that's that like release from inside, because there's just so much like built up like tension, built up trauma, like whether it's even real or not, right? Like how many actors of our level or higher level have, just been to places or been in things where it's just like, wow, that still has an effect on me. Playing this character still has an effect on me. And that's not even taking into fact, like the own stuff that's going on in your own life, right? And so I think by doing something creative, you can then release some of that stuff you have pent up inside you.
And it's funny you bring that up because I've seen you play some pretty intense characters on stage. So whatever you need to do to release that, please do it.
Yeah, right.
No, you're fun to watch, man. Like the times I've watched you, I saw you in Permafrost, and then the nursery rhyme showcase directed by Wolf, and I'm like, wow, there's a role in some Tarantino movie for you. Like,
ooh, Tarantino, I'll take Tarantino.
Like just watching, it was just fun to watch you because not everyone can get to that point. You know what I mean? Like to play those types of characters that you were in those scenes. Like you got to go some places to go there, man.
Yeah, it's like our teachers tell us, like sometimes we just, it's like don't judge. It's not judging the character, right? Not judging them. It's just like some people are very nice, but like ultimately, okay, maybe not ultimately, because maybe there are some people that wouldn't, but ultimately for me, there's always going to be like some tripping point that can send you over that edge. And this actually even doubles back to like, expressing yourself creatively, because that helps you start to know yourself a little better. And it's just about finding these reasons and finding as if there was a parallel universe, finding the circumstances that leads you to the you in that universe, right? Because it's like, okay, I'm playing in the nursery rhyme one. I was one of a mobster in one of them, and like my character was not a very nice person. He was not a very nice person, and the things that he did, instead of like judging them and be like, oh, this is wrong, this is evil, it's like I had to find the justification for a life that I could have lived that doing those things makes sense to me, that having those outcomes make sense to me, and I don't see them as evil or bad, and I see them as these things that's what I would do. That makes sense to me.
Right, because at the end of the day, what is good, what is bad? Because what may seem bad to somebody is necessary in someone else's world.
Yep.
No, that makes sense. And I want to go back to, so what I was really looking forward to this conversation too, is because like I know you, but I don't know you.
Yeah, right.
In a good way at the same time. So I definitely want to talk about that Muay Thai stuff and all that. That sounds very interesting. But how long have you been out here in Los Angeles, and where are you coming from? What brought you out here originally?
Whew. So I did come out here for acting.
Okay.
Right. But the story goes, once upon a time. No. So I'm prior service. So I was in the Marine Corps, 0351 anti-tank missile assaultman. So rockets, demolitions, breaching, deployed twice. After I got out, I had moved to Florida, and I was actually I was actually majoring in forensic psychology. And then after that, the plan was to move into a 3-letter agency. So like DEA, FBI, to do like hostage rescue or something like that. But while I was in Florida, 2 things happened in Florida and 1 thing happened when I was back home. So the thing that happened when I was back home, my family lives on the East Coast. The thing that happened back home was I was talking to a friend and he had a question for me. And the question was, if time and money weren't a factor, what would you do? And this is anything. Like if you wanted to build a floating castle in the sky, right? If that's what you want to do, sure. If that's, go ahead and do it. So if time and money weren't a factor, what would you do? And particularly after being in the Marine Corps, and finding that ability to overcome challenges, my thought went to acting. Because growing up, I've always thought acting was cool. I always thought like, oh, it's always been a way for me to go to different worlds, to see different people, to experience different experiences, but it was always on the outside. And for whatever reason, I wasn't good looking enough. My skin wasn't clear enough. Whatever the case may be, acting just wasn't for me. It wasn't something that I could do. It was something that other people did. And then when I was in Florida, with that question niggling in the back of my mind of acting, that's something that I like, I had to read a book in one of my English classes. It was called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And that's a book that I think everybody should read, right? Just everybody should read it. Regardless, it's not a long read. It's like 100, it's under 200 pages. But essentially the book is about, finding your purpose and chasing your purpose. And I think the quote in the book, has been a while, don't quote me, but the quote in the book is that basically it sums up as like anything you set your heart to, the universe will conspire to give it to you. And so for me, it's like, I'm going to this 3-letter agency, doing this whole track with the FBI and all that stuff because it's something that I'm good at. It's something that I can do. I'm very capable at. But then the last thing was, in a philosophy class, I had to write a paper about if you could tell someone in 3 things what makes like a good life, what would they be? And one of the things that I came up with was joy. And so as I'm writing about joy, I'm asking myself and exploring, how do I experience joy? And for me, it just came up as everything that I've done performing arts-wise has always brought me joy. So I used to be a dance choreographer. I started choreographing in high school with my best friend. We were getting paid to choreograph dances for our high school teams. And then we moved into summer camps. And then I moved into teaching at universities. So I had a lot of experience with that. And then even still, like, funny enough, like I started remembering like times where I actually did acting. There was plays that I did even as a younger child, and I'm like, wow, actually I have done this acting thing, and it is possible for me. And so those 3 things made me say, okay, you know what? Let's try it out. And I went to Truthful Acting Studios. Shout out to Truthful Acting Studios, Orlando, Florida. They are also the Meisner technique there. And I went there and I took their Meisner 1 course, and then I took their Meisner 2 course. And when I was taking their Meisner 2 course, that's when I started auditioning, just for the practice of it. Not because I was like really trying to book roles or anything, but just to start getting comfortable with that. And the school there, Full Sail, is actually the sister school of the school that I'm at right now, which is Los Angeles Film School. And after being on my first set, I was like, this is it. This is it. So I finished out that semester and got my associates. And then after that, I was like, I'm coming to Cali. So I've been here since, I want to say the very end of 2018. So basically like 2018, 2019.
Okay, yeah, it's similar to your 2018, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, 20. So yeah, 6. That, first of all, that's awesome. Like that story. So many questions within what you just told. And The Alchemist is one of the best books of all time. I have to agree with you on that. And just what I love about it so much is how everything's leading you to the next thing.
Yeah.
Too. But when you find that purpose or that passion, you learn to become more accepting of like, okay, this is leading me It's leading me there. I don't know why maybe I'm going through this right now or why we're over here, but I know at the end it's going to lead me to they call it the treasure or whatever he calls it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty dope.
And it's crazy too, because like I even experienced some of those same experiences. Like, when he gets to the city, and sorry, spoiler alert, when he gets to the city and he gets stuck because he gets in this thing that's comfortable. Like, even when I first came out here, I didn't immediately get into acting, because I first came out here and I started my VFX degree because on some of the sets I'd seen some of the editors' work and saw the stuff they were doing. I thought that was really cool too. And so as I got into my VFX stuff, like I started using that as an excuse to not like, oh, I got to get used to my school schedule. I got to get behind this. And then just like got comfortable in that until like I realized, oh wait, bro, you're stuck in the city. You're stuck in the city, and you're just like, cool, you're cool here. It's good here, but your treasure's still out there. And so then, eventually that got me to finally seek out Playhouse West.
Wow. And that's interesting because like you said, you had been, and by the way, I can totally see you playing FBI agents and CIA, like all types of different.
I'm waiting for the role, man. I'm waiting for the role of somebody
like you
out
kicking
there.
down a door and be like, freeze. Like,
I get that from so many people. Like, yeah, a military police officer, that's you detective. I'm like, somebody has me.
I was going to say, there's so many routes I want to go with. There's so many great things, but you're exactly right. What's the saying? I'm going to butcher this. The comfort zone's where all your dreams die type of thing. And I'm learning too, even when you do start to pursue it, and you are in there, there's still little traps along the way to get comfortability is not good. Like I'm realizing you want to be okay, but you want to keep yourself a little metaphorically, a little hungry, like a little thirsty, a little more colder, like, something to keep that drive going. Not just, especially in a town like this, where like we were saying in the beginning, just people are hustling 24/7. So even just giving yourself that little edge, Now, and for the people, and this is my own ignorance, VFX, what does that stand for exactly? I've heard the term so many times, but I don't know exactly what it is.
I mean, so it's hard. It's not hard, but it gets used as a blanket term. Like, so sometimes people will ask me like, oh, you do VFX, right? You can do this. I'm like, listen, no, but it just stands for visual effects. And, so just visual effects, but a lot of times that gets lumped in with special effects, that gets lumped in with other things. So like special effects would be things that are actually being done on set. Like that explosion was actually produced on set, like those kind of things, like the blood shots that came from the squibs that the people are wearing, all of those kind of things. Those are technically special effects. Visual effects more leans into things that you're going to use a computer to do, right? So whether it's compositing a background, like extending the set to having like these extra buildings in the background, or if someone's on a green screen and cutting them out, or, you have the vehicle that's not an actual vehicle. It's a digital one. 3D vehicle. Though that's more what's going to be visual effects, 3D models, all of that. But even then within that, there are like specializations. So just because someone says they do VFX, it's not like not everybody models, not everybody animates, not everybody does compositing. So there's so much that then falls under that title.
So it's post-production.
Correct.
Okay. Did After Effects, did you ever work with like stuff like that, or is
After Effects is a program that is used for visual effects. After Effects is kind of like you'll generally find it more on like maybe television shows, commercials, things like that, and then you generally find like node-based compositing done through like Nuke. A lot of Houdini is becoming very big in the industry now, though, as well. But those are going to be the ones that are used. That's like the industry standard, like Nuke is like technically the industry standard. That's what all like big productions are using. But you can use them all. They're all very efficient. It just deals with like how you do it. After Effects is layer based. Like if you've ever worked with Photoshop, it's like okay, which file is or which piece is on top of the other piece then affects how like the whole thing goes through, where a node base like with Nuke or Houdini, it's like it doesn't necessarily have, the order does matter a little in terms of that, but it's not like you're not putting something like directly above it. It's all like linked into this node will go into here and that causes an effect there. And you can make so much, it can get very complicated. But yeah, so I've used After Effects. I use After Effects for most of the things that I do now, just because Houdini's or Nuke Nuke is expensive. So,
and thank you for breaking that down. That gives me more, because a lot of the terms I've heard, I just didn't know exactly what they were. But I have to ask this because this is a common theme on this podcast as of late is AI.
Yeah.
Are you seeing AI trickle in to what you do with VFX and all that?
For me, because right now, since I'm in school, I'm kind of just focusing more on, right now I'm currently more focusing on editing, DIT, and learning those. I haven't really used AI much, but from what I've seen, I can see that AI will be something that is going to be significantly used. I mean, and it's not always as direct as we're thinking too. Sometimes the AI is being used more in like computing aspects, right? That it's happening, but AI is definitely going to be something that's utilized in the VFX field for sure, because you've seen some of the videos, or I've seen some of the videos where it's like creating this model to now follow this person, instead of like me having to do it manually, or even having to like do mocap and then program all of that into it. Like I said, there's ways that the AI can just compute all of that for you, and boom, now you're saving time. And this industry, time is money. So there's no way that AI is not going to have an impact on VFX.
And you know what? I was thinking the other day, you know, obviously the strikes and everything that happened out here. It seems that Hollywood actually was one of the first to say, hey, like we need to really start paying attention to this. But now you're seeing across other industries outside of here what's happening with it. So it wasn't just hitting here, it was hitting everywhere. So I was just curious, especially being technical things you're dealing with, if AI was playing a role.
Yeah, not so much for me. I'm sure there's other people that are using it and that are finding ways to utilize it. Just with a lot of the freelance stuff that I do, because I have so many other things going on, I just don't currently have the time. Like I haven't even really like looked into it and how I could then utilize it, which I probably should, right? How I can utilize it in my workflows. So currently, not as of yet, I haven't really been doing any of that. I'd honestly probably, there's a couple of online schools that I use every time like something new that comes up that I'm like, oh, I want to learn how to do this. So eventually, I'm sure there'll be one of those programs like, hey, we've now used AI based in this and this and this, and we have this course. Like that's more probably when it'll affect me personally.
But by that time, you're going to be full blown on some series, or
hopefully that's the hope.
Lead role FBI agent. What's that show with the detectives, True Detective, where they switch it up every season?
Yeah,
I've yet to watch it, but like
yeah,
Matthew McConaughey was on one time. I can't remember. I guess it's a huge hit.
Okay, that's interesting because it's like having your protagonist change every season.
Yeah, it changes. They change every season. They change out the characters, from what I understand.
Okay, as the audience, that's okay. It must have really good writing. It must have really good writing. I just feel like the audience would get attached to an actor and then be like, no, I don't want it. But I guess it's also a new character, so that's a little different. Because I'm just thinking of like Spartacus, for instance, right? That's one of those shows where I believe the lead actor, he died from a form of cancer, and they had another guy replace him. And he was a great actor, right? He was a great actor, but it was just like, just not the same, you know? Because you've gone on this journey with that one actor and that one character, and so you're so invested. But I guess in a show like that where you know that the change is coming. And I guess they do it in a lot of police shows where you have like these multiple perspectives. As long as the writing's good, it could work.
And I have such a respect for really good series now. The ones that have you seen Succession? Did you see that one?
I've started it, and
okay, well, I'll quit talking.
Okay.
I'll finish it. That's all I'm gonna say.
Okay,
finish it. Worth your time.
My permafrost character actually takes a little bit from one of the characters in Succession.
Which one?
It's the younger brother, that just has like that attitude all the time.
Yeah.
I don't remember his name now because it's been a while since I've watched.
Macaulay Culkin's brother, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I actually, and it was funny because I actually had
Roman.
A couple
plays Roman in the show. Yeah.
People ask me like, "Have you ever seen Decision?" Because you remind me of, and I'm like, "Okay, I did my job, I guess." So.
Yeah, and that. I don't know. I have an appreciation. What's great about a series too, and I've talked to other filmmakers about this, because a 2-hour feature, you can only put so much in. But 12 episodes in one season, and you do multiple seasons, that's hours and hours and hours, 40, 50, 60 hours you get to develop that role. So when those big scenes come in whatever season down the road, it hits so hard. Because like you said, you become attached to these characters. And you truly, I again, no spoiler alerts or anything, but after Succession series finale, that stayed with me for a little bit.
Yeah.
That was with me for a couple days. Yeah. It was, so no, I totally can understand that perspective.
Okay. I'll definitely have to finish it. Cause, when you're talking about that actually reminded me of, This Is Us. I'm not sure if you've watched This Is Us, but they do so well with so many things like tying back to characters and looping back into their arc and back into their development that all the characters are just so well written. You're just growing with everybody and all of the different plights they have. You're just right there with them, and you just understand and you feel, and you're just like, oh man, you're just like breaking down with them every episode. So yeah, if Succession is like that too, yeah, I'll just have to finish that.
So who inspires you? Like what, I know you were always drawn to acting, but is there any particular movie or actors that led you to want to pursue it and still lead you to keep going now?
So interestingly enough, and I don't know why this is, I have never had a role model. Like I don't, for whatever reason, I just don't do role models. I think people do very well in their performances and their roles, and I will admire that role that they played. But as far as like really tracking that one person and being like, oh, I want my career to develop like this person's, or have a body of work like that, I've never really had that instinct. I've always just seen things and been like, I want to do that, right? And as like Wolf likes to say, right, it's like when we bring in a one act or bring in a new scene or that we want to put up, and it's like, yeah, okay. He's like, yeah, okay, that's what's written on the page. Like we get that, but what are you going to do with it? Right? This is your chance to tell this story. What are you going to do with it? And I think subconsciously, or not subconsciously, but like unknowingly, that's kind of how I've just always like approached life, in that sense of like, when I see something that I like or see someone doing something that I like or that inspires me, I'm like, okay, what am I going to do with that? How am I going to do that? But with that being said,
I like that, by the way. I think that's really important. Not trying to be anyone else but you.
Yeah. I think it's also just important because this industry is just so front facing, especially now with actors being like, everybody's a brand, with everyone being a brand now, and with everything being so front facing, being able to have that assurity and that foundation in yourself of who you are and why you're pursuing this, and that motivation to keep doing it, I think is important, because otherwise, just like that outside interference that you're going to get it just becomes that more impactful. So I think, yeah, that's important. But I mean, you know, I love some of the greats. But Denzel Washington for sure. He's done just a lot of stuff. He's just done so many roles where it's just like, man, you gotta respect this man. Like there's no two ways about it. Especially just like growing up, you know, Training Day, John Q, like some of those roles. I remember seeing them and being like, man, like Man on Fire.
Even the most recent Equalizer 3, man, he's still kicking ass.
Yeah,
Like,
I haven't seen that third one yet. I've seen the first two, and it's funny that he did those because I think Equalizer is the first series that he's done sequels to. He hasn't.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, he hadn't done sequels.
Oh, yeah, I guess he really doesn't, does he?
Everything was just like a one-off. I mean, a lot of the young boys too right now. I think it's just like recency bias that I kind of have, where it's like I see somebody and they're doing something and they have a role and I'm like, oh, that was cool. I want to do that. And it's like, okay, what am I gonna do with it? Thing like, you know, in my head, and I'm just like imagining myself doing that. But I mean, rest in peace to Chadwick. So he just great performances. I really like John Boyega and Daniel Kaluuya too. Like, I don't know if you've seen, what is it? Black Mirror. Black Mirror was the first time.
Everyone's told me to watch that.
Was the first time that I saw him. And his performance in that, I think, was probably the last time most recently that I watched something and I was just like, damn, like he got deep in that. Like he was living that. And yeah. So my role model is more like seeing deep performances and then wanting to achieve that at some level for myself. So that's kind of my guiding force, right? It's like seeing the heights that other people can achieve and then wanting to do that for myself.
I love that. I've truthfully, I've never heard anyone put it the way you just put it. Like that's because I think a lot, especially in the social media age, where we're constant comparison, like we're trying to, I want to be just like that. It's like, no, they're showing you what they did with that. Maybe you want to do the same type of thing, but how are you going to do it? Even with this podcast, like millions of people podcasts, but like, all right, what are you going to do on this one? You know, your own thing. So no, I really dig that. And again, rest in peace to Chadwick. I was thinking when you're saying about how they replace characters sometimes, I love how they didn't do that.
Yeah.
In that second Black Panther movie, how they just let it be. It was so incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just added to the effect of the movie, right? Because it was like you're losing him in the movie and then losing him in real life. And then especially finding out, because so many people were like, oh, making comments about his appearance, and then to only find out after he was gone that, yo, this man's been battling cancer and he's been doing that while doing all of these roles and nobody is known. He's going through these treatments and doing these things and still going to these places. And it's just like, damn. And so it's like, you know, I think that they did a very good job of capturing that sense of loss in Wakanda 2 or Wakanda Forever. I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah, they're both great, both of them, Black Panther 1 and 2. And then he was incredible in everything I've ever seen him. He obviously just seemed like a really good person too.
Yep.
You know. So right now, what's your focus? You auditioning a lot? You doing a lot? I'm sure you're just probably doing everything, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So our class is getting ready to put up extravaganza. So we're doing, at the veteran students, we're doing one acts, and we were actually able to write our own one acts if we wanted this time. I didn't write this one. My partner, Alicia Gillum, she wrote it. I helped her a little bit with it. She's gonna try and say we wrote it, but she's the author of that thing. Brilliant mind. So we're getting ready to put that up. And then I just came off of a few projects that just waiting on to see. And then, like you said, been auditioning lately. So I got a couple callbacks and waiting to see where those go. Some chemistry reads coming up, and hopefully, they evolve into something. If not, I'm just like, man, if I book one thing in every like 10 to 12 auditions, I'm like, I'm doing great. Like, I'm doing great.
I would think that's pretty good numbers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what would you say? I mean, it's
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 12. Do you have an agent? Do you have a manager? Do you have all that?
So I have a manager and I have a commercial agent. I have yet to get to sign for a theatrical agent right now. That was my focus like a month ago. I was working like diligently on that, then just getting it caught up. And I'm also doing a documentary coming up, filming a documentary, but as crew. So I'm the cam op and editor for that. And so we're just spinning that up, getting like locations and interviews and all that kind of stuff set up. So spinning that up for my school, because it's a part of my classes, and then coming off of some other post-production classes and thesis classes where I've helped out some of my other classmates. That's taking a little bit of a backseat, but that is something that I need to like refocus on.
When do you graduate? When's that set to be done?
Technically, so technically I should probably graduate actually in October. So coming up pretty soon here, coming to the end of the line, I'll have some more ability to manage my time then. But as I said in prior service, so I have some things with the vet center. So we'll see if I'm able, because for my track, you can only do X amount of classes. Like you can only take these specific classes. And there are some cinematography classes particularly that I would still like to take, that I'm trying to see if there's a way for me to work that in. But yeah, so if not, then I'll probably end up graduating in October.
Okay, cool. And if you don't mind me asking, your time in the service.
Sure.
What is that, right after high school, right after college?
So it was after some college. So my whole thing with actually going into the service was because I always knew I wanted to do some sort of special weapon. So SWAT was my original goal, right? So SWAT was my original goal, but a lot of SWAT officers are either prior military, and if you're not, then there's like this big thing you got to go through with being in the department for a while. And shout out to all the community police out there, but I just don't want to do community policing, right? I was like, how can I skip over that? I was like, I just want to skip over that and go to special weapons and tactics. And so that was a little bit behind the reason of me going into the military. So I got out of high school, went to college, got my associates, and then I was like, I'm going to the Marine Corps. And so then I went to the Marine Corps because part of, like I said, FBI. And then I also just wanted to test my mental fortitude. I'd had a couple of friends and people that I knew that had also went to the Marine Corps, and they're like, yeah, there's a lot of physically demanding and difficult things. Like, but that's not the real challenge. The real challenge is the mental stuff. And I was just like, oh, that sounds very interesting. And because I just had always prided myself as a younger man on my mental fortitude. So I was like, let's go Marines. They're supposed to be the roughest, the toughest, and the baddest. Like, let's go to the Marines. And so I was originally supposed to go in for a force recon contract, but unbeknownst to me, my dual citizenship did not allow me to go force recon because you need a top secret clearance, and you can't get a top secret clearance if you have a dual citizenship. And before you ask, my country of origin is Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago. So sometimes, if I feel like it, I just talk like this and thing, I have the accent and all that. This actually helped me book some movies. But I've been here in America since I was like 5. So I very much have a American accent. Yeah.
Which one's the real one, or which one's the original one?
Which one's the original, right? I couldn't really tell you. I guess you would say maybe the American accent. It's hard to judge because I was so young that, especially as a young child, you're just going to imitate what's around you. So I had as I was very young, everybody, Trinidadian, talking in that accent, but then came to Montreal, and so now you have English speakers that are like French Canadian, um, and then my parents that still spoke Trinidadian, and then we came to New York, and so then you have that, and now you just have like these pure American accents, but then there's so many cultures in New York, and then eventually we went to Vermont, which which is where I spent my formative years. Growing up, and then for me as a kid, it's like, oh, okay, people are here talking like this. Okay, people are here talking like that. Kids are always going to find something to pick on you about.
Right.
So I have a way with languages. I'm not fluent in any other language, but I'm always very good at pronouncing words in other languages where people are like, oh wow, yeah, you said that perfectly. And I think it's because of that, as a young child, being exposed to so many different cultures and then like imitating how those people spoke, that it gives me a bit of a upper hand when it comes to like hearing different languages and trying to pronounce things in their language.
Yeah, because you were exposed to a lot of different cultures and cities, and I'm always fascinated by people that either can switch accents like that or speak dual languages and things like that. I just feel it's like a different level of intelligence to be able to do that. And probably, like you said, for acting, I'm sure that is key. I mean, because how many actors, I remember being floored. You hear an actor talking an American accent, and then all of a sudden they start talking like this in an interview. I'm like, whoa! I didn't know they were from England.
Yeah,
but it's a true skill.
Yeah,
to do. So you have incorporated that into acting.
I have. Funny enough, from the nursery rhyme, there was somebody that came to our show, and in one of the nursery rhymes, I did a British accent, and they then got moved into advanced because they were in intermediate, and they came to class, and the first day they saw me working, they were like, we thought you were from England. I was like, no, that was just an accent I was doing for the show. So I had a bit of a reversal with that. And even though I do things like that, it's like, I don't know, I always find it super impressive. Like you said, when you're hearing these people in these auditions and they're like switching back and forth from their American accent to what they actually talk. It's like, damn, you have a really good American accent. so yeah, I always.
Well, that's a compliment then they gave you. You know, you must have really have sold it well.
I guess, yeah, right. So I'm always like self-conscious about that and like second guessing. So as we were talking before the podcast started, The Little Mermaid is the movie that I'm in that just got rated, that's going to be coming out soon, and it's shot in the Caribbean on an island called St. Kitts and Nevis, which is close-ish to Trinidad, and it's in that area, and we have very similar accents, but native speakers are going to know the difference. Like, that's not a Catition accent, and so like that was like one of my things on set. It was just like not trying to let it slide and just like do this, oh, here's my Caribbean accent, to just blanket Caribbean accent, but like actually try and really get the tones and the flows that the Catitians use. And whether or not I actually was able to achieve that, we'll see. But I had a lot of help because the crew, mainly the crew, was a lot of the crew was Catitians. So I'm like, hey, I don't like this in the script. It doesn't sound right. Like, how would you guys say this? Because a lot of times too, it's not only that there's like an accent, even how we like arrange our sentences to speak is different, and that like plays a big part in like recognizing like, is someone actually native from that area, or are they just putting on an accent front? So.
And do you go back to Trinidad ever at all? Or
it's been a long time since I've been back to Trinidad. That is on the list. I was actually looking earlier this year. I was trying to plan my next vacation that hasn't happened yet this year. But it's been a little while since I've been back to Trinidad. But that is someplace that I want to go back to. If anyone of you guys go, Tobago, there's two separate islands, Trinidad and Tobago. Tobago is more of the touristy place. If you guys want to go there, there's this really, really clear, beautiful place on the ocean called the Nylon Pool, and they take you out there on boats, and the boats have like the glass bottom so you can see the sea. But basically, the Nylon Pool is a dead coral reef that's there, and then you can get out of the boats and you can just walk on this coral reef, and the water is just so clear, so clear, it's
crystal clear,
beautiful.
Man, that sounds good. No, okay, that's to show my lack of geographical.
Trinidad is basically, if you're looking on a map, look for Venezuela, look off of the coast of Venezuela, and boom, you'll see it right there. The Trinidadians originally came from South America, I think. Don't roast me, my Trinidadian brethren. I'm trying to remember the names of the tribes that came over to the Antilles. It's Arawak, I want to say, was one of the tribes that I think my family comes from. So
okay, so that's So you've been in Florida, you've been in New York. Did you say Montreal?
Yes.
Been to what's that city like? I've heard a lot of good things about Montreal. I heard it's a pretty.
Montreal is fun. I mean, for me, it's kind of that place because Vermont is 2 hours from Montreal. So when in the drinking age there's 18, so
it's only a 2-hour drive. It's only
it's actually shorter now.
I heard Vermont's beautiful too. Actually.
Vermont is beautiful. Yeah. Like, we have all the seasons in Vermont. Fall's my favorite, and I just really like because you get to change out your wardrobe, right? California, I'm like, I can just wear like these 5 things
every day
for the whole year, but you can't do that in Vermont. I don't miss the snow though. Sorry. But I do really love the falls in Vermont. But yeah. So Vermont's right there. I think they put like some kind of Beltline highway thing now that they have to expedite the process now. So it's even shorter time to Montreal. But yeah, when I was 18, I don't drink, but my friends drink, and we could go out to clubs there. So it's like, what are we doing this weekend, boys? Getting in the car, driving up to Montreal. So like, that's the Montreal that I really know. Is that side of Montreal, but Montreal is also a very beautiful city. Quebec City is a very beautiful city. Some of my family still lives in Toronto. I've been up there too, and it's all very nice, all very beautiful.
So it's like Vancouver for Seattle, pretty much. That's probably or maybe the same. It sounds like it should be a movie. Montreal. It's about these guys, 18, 19-year-old kids.
Right. You can definitely do
instead of Vegas. It's like, no, we're Montreal, baby.
Right. You could definitely do like a teenage. What is it? Hangover, right?
Yeah.
In Montreal, you can definitely do a teenage hangover in Montreal too. Usually too, like most of the times we would just be crazy and we wouldn't like drive up there, party till like 3, and then drive the 2 hours back that same morning. But there are times too, like, you're like, all right, like, let's just get a hotel because they have all of that stuff right there. And so, I could see, a like a teenage hangover being done there. It's actually a good idea, man. You should
when you described it to me, I'm like, oh, that because it reminded me of back when you're in college, like driving to other colleges and stuff. Well, if you guys had a place that the drinking age was legal, we're going to Montreal, That's funny. And I do want to go back to the service. You say you deployed twice. Mm-hmm. Are you able to say where you went?
Yeah. So my first deployment was a UDP, and basically that means we deploy with the Navy, and we're on their vessels, and we patrol a certain area. So I was on the 13th MEU, so we patrolled CENTCOM. Mm-hmm. So my unit, or people from my units, we went to Djibouti, Africa. We went to Oman. We went to Israel. We went to South Korea. Went to Jordan. We were supposed to go to Kuwait, but what they like to call OPSEC, operational security, that got out that we were going there and when we were going to be there. So we had to reroute because, if people know where we're going to be and when we're going to be, then they can plan for that. The Philippines, we went to Singapore. We went to, some of these are Liberty ports. So they're just like places for us that we stop off in a couple of days and we're not doing anything. We're just going out and enjoying these foreign countries. And then some of them are actual places where we're going and we're either training doing bilateral training with the militaries that are out there, or we're going and we're doing operations. So.
And you said deploy. Does that mean you're going like a tour? Like you're out for a certain amount of time doing? How
Yeah.
long were those when you would
So
go?
generally, Marine Corps deployments are 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
For our deployment while we were in Africa in Djibouti, there was some stuff that was going on in Syria, and it prompted a response from the Marine Corps. So they spun up a special MAGTF out of Spain. So that's another like special group of soldiers that respond to threats in that like area of operation. So they came down to Spain into Djibouti, Africa, and at that point we detached from the MU tactically and attached to that special MAGTF, and so our deployment ended up being 9 months because we spent 3 months with them in Djibouti, Africa. So.
And then what was your decision? Did you just say, okay, I've done enough of this, or just there comes a time where like, all right, you've served your time, you're done?
I actually got screwed over a little bit. So we did that deployment. Then the second deployment was basically a bilateral training deployment to Australia. So I wanted to lat move, so change jobs to the criminal investigations department. And for that job, it requires 2 packages that need to be filled out in order for it to go through. There's one that you have to send to headquarters Marine Corps, but since criminal investigations, you're basically a federal officer with a gun and the badge, then that you have to do a separate package for them. I had started my package on my deployment in Australia with a CID officer there. Then when I got back stateside, I needed him to send me that half of the package. And he was like, oh, I can't send it electronically for whatever reason. I don't know what happened. And so he sent it snail mail, like the normal way. And when I talked to the CID officers, they're like, sure, we'll just do the second half of your package, which I had to do a board, I had to do a test and all this other stuff for the federal side to make sure like, this dude's not crazy. He's good to have that. And I passed that flying colors. They wanted me, but it took 3 months for that package to get to me from Okinawa, because that's where that CID officer was actually stationed. He was also deployed. It took 3 months to get to me. And every year there's a thing called boat spaces, which basically just means how many positions they have open in that job for that fiscal year. And there was 15 boat spaces that year. By the time I had gotten the rest of my package, they had already accepted 16 people. So they're already one over their number. And at this time as well, I had picked up sergeant meritoriously. And I think maybe Russia, I forget who, but someone bombed some runway. I think it might have been in Syria again. So someone bombed the runway in Syria. So a lot of units were spinning up their deployments to go there. And I was like, all right, well, if I can't do CID, I asked them like, what can I do? Since you guys already accepted everyone, they're like, well, you could re-enlist into the infantry. So do another 4-year enlistment, but after 2 years, request to be moved. But I know how that works. I'm not going to fall for that. and then so I was like, I don't want to do that. And then so I talked to my monitor, and he was like, or not my monitor, but to the gunny, and he was like, well, you can try to go somewhere else. So I was like, all right, because you'll need to B billet if you do more than 8 years. And I was like, all right, well, I'll do security forces. And I wanted to do specifically Yankee White. They're the guys that work at the White House with Secret Service. And so I wanted to lat move to security forces. And my monitor, who is the guy that monitors everybody in one MOS. So he was the 51 monitor. I was the 0351. He was the 51 monitor. Because that stuff was happening and because of how our cutting scores work, which is what allows you to get promoted, there just weren't a lot of 0351 sergeants at the time. And so he was like, no, you can't lat move to security forces. Here's a bunch of Victor units, combat units that you can re-enlist with. And at that point, he technically wasn't allowed to do that because I had already done 4 years and 2 deployments with the unit that I was with. Like those are pretty much the only requirements that you have to meet in order to that they're not supposed to be able to stop you from doing a lat move. But I don't know. I guess it's like, I don't know if it's like, oh, well, it's almost sort of kind of wartime that it was what was going on there. So I don't know if he like used something to not allow me. But at that point, I was like, and this is how you lose good Marines. I'm out of here. So I was like, all right. Because essentially I was just doing CID in order to get more criminal investigation experience to then move into FBI DEA once I was done with the military. So I did 5 years, and then but I'd plan on doing like 8 to 12 and then coming out and going FBI and doing that stuff. But that didn't end up happening. So I just got out and then started school, and then ran into my acting. So was it really a bad thing that he didn't let me lap move?
I was just gonna say, I mean, yeah, it led you to here, right?
Yeah, because it led me to here.
Yeah, you're right. That was probably a really pivotal moment for you, because if you do get what you wanted there, you probably would be a FBI, exactly. CIA, someone up there.
Yeah, I don't go to Florida. I don't have that philosophy class and that English class. I don't read The Alchemist, and I don't audition at Full Sail. So yeah,
isn't it crazy how just one event? It's your life's made up of multiple events, but there are those turning points. You know, there's that one thing that takes you a complete different direction. You know, I even know me coming out here, my acting teacher in Vegas is like, shout out to Daryl Morris, is like, go to Playhouse West. I come to Playhouse West, and I can't imagine moving out here without that place. Like, because I met everybody so quickly. Right. And I'm like, man, I remember talking to people, like, it took me years to find this school. And I'm like, oh, I was blessed to know about this right away and come, but just going to that first class and then getting sucked in to everything. It's like, wow, what if I wouldn't have gone there? Like, what would have life looked like out here? Who knows?
Yeah. You know? And it's like, you know, you like hate to say it, right? But I guess I won't really say it, like, not necessarily that everything happens for a reason, but when things happen, even if they're not necessarily what you want, that doesn't mean it's not going to lead you to what you want, right? So for me, like, that's not what I wanted at that time, right? I wanted to stay and I wanted to do CID, but what I really would want to do would be acting if time and money were a consideration. So was that the universe conspiring to give me what I really wanted? So
back to The Alchemist too. One of my favorite parts of the book is when he has to go work in the glass shop for, I think it was like a year.
Yeah.
Just to save money to move on, to go to the next step. But that's what I've always used too, when you find yourself, and I don't even know if slump's the right word, but you're like, oh man, why isn't things happening this way? Why am I going through this? That's always been a great analogy to, like, hey, it's all, like you said, the universe is, it's all working, you know, it just may not be in the time that you think it's going to happen.
Yep.
And I do have, so when you were traveling the world, was acting on your mind then? Or were you just so focused on wanting to get into the FBI, the CIA? I know once you got back to Florida and it was opening your mind, but was that one of the things that was always in the back? Like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to be an actor.
Yes, actually. This is crazy. And I'm going to mess up your name, brother. I don't know if you're ever going to see this. And I actually just saw you the other day. But there was a Marine, and this was back when the YouTubes was still a lot bigger for content creators than it is now. But there was a Marine there that he had like this little content creation thing, and I think he was called the Buffalo Hunter. So you can probably look it up. Mario, I believe, is his last name. And I had seen him put up like some little sketch thing, and I was just like, bro, and it was just like in me, like, oh my gosh, acting like that. I'm like, oh, that was so cool. Like, I would want to do like acting. So yes. So while I was in the Marine Corps, it was something that would pop up every now and then, like, especially if I saw someone that was in a similar position or someone that I could see myself in, type of thing, doing acting particularly, then it was like, could I be an actor? So yeah, it was something that was in the back of my mind and that would pop up while I was in the Marine Corps.
Okay. No, thank you for sharing all that. I had no idea about any of that, and it's always amazing to get to know people better, especially out here in LA. Because most of us, there's people that are born and raised here, obviously, but it's interesting to hear everyone's story of like, how'd you get here? Oh, you lived how many lives before this? So the Muay Thai, I wanted to ask about
Oh
that
yeah,
as well. So okay, that's not related to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's a completely separate thing.
correct.
What led you to get into that? Like, was that something that you've always wanted to try, or random?
So with Muay Thai, I've just always been into martial arts.
Yeah.
That's also like a big segue for me into
Mm.
acting.
Hmm.
Particularly like when I was young, it was like action movies. Like what? I want to be in Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, Wesley Snipes. All this Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Like I want to be in one of those movies. So I've always been into martial arts. Um, Off and on as a kid. I did different martial arts. I did kung fu. I did taekwondo. I did Valari Shaolin Kempo, and then I just technically I did MCMAP, Marine Corps Martial Arts Program, which is just a mix of a bunch of
It's
different
called
things.
McMath.
Yeah, it's called MCMAP. We always make fun of it, like, bro, don't mess with me because you have belts, right? And they're different colors. And the like first rank, I guess you would call it, is like a tan belt. And so like I'm a tan belt ninja. Like, don't mess with me. I know McMahon. So we'd always joke about that. But yeah, so I've done several different martial arts, and it wasn't until, and I've always wanted to get back into it. Like I've looked up places out here before. I've looked up boxing places out here. I've looked up even like kendo places and kenjutsu places out here, which is like swords, um, specifically like Japanese style katana. And I was just like, but it wasn't until I met one of my friends from Playhouse West, her husband. He does Muay Thai, and he was like, "Bro, you just got to come with me, man." He's like, "You gotta come with me, come." And I'm like, "All right, fine." So he finally, pressured me into coming, and I was like, "Yeah, man, we're in here." Because Muay Thai is a style that I haven't done before. Like I said, I've done a couple of
You're
other
pretty
styles.
experienced leading into it.
Yeah, I definitely wasn't like a beginner um going into it, and I've done like I said different styles. And so but Muay Thai, especially after seeing like Ong Bak and The Protector, those movies with Tony Jaa specifically, he's friggin' legend. Muay Thai was one that I've wanted to try. And it's crazy because the Muay Thai dojo MTAG that I go to is literally right across from the Magnolia studio at Playhouse West.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They're on the same block.
Huh.
On the same block. And it's like, I'm like, what? Like, what is
Walk out of one class, go right into another.
Yeah, it's like what kind of coincidence, So
Mm.
yeah. So I've started doing Muay Thai. I've been doing that since November. Um, like I said,
You're gonna compete?
I want to compete lower level competition PKB. So wear headgear, you wear shin pads, and then there's no elbows. Got to protect the face.
Yeah.
There's no elbows, but yeah. So I still want to compete. And another place for one of my vacations is I want to go to Thailand. For like a week and just train at at the studios out there and stuff. So just get that experience.
Well, and getting to know you more in this podcast, it seems like you're especially with the service background, and everything. Your discipline's definitely a part of your arsenal, and that's one thing I've heard about martial arts. It's so good for discipline, giving people that. I never trained in martial arts, but sports was definitely that for me. So would you say, I mean, has it helped you with discipline, or is discipline something you've just always had? So doing something like that comes more natural for you?
I think discipline in terms of martial arts, similarly in terms of the military, I wouldn't say they necessarily give you discipline as much as they bring out your discipline,
Mm.
right? They force you to engage your discipline and how not necessarily how well you do, but how deep you get into it, I do think speaks to your discipline. Um, what I'm doing right now with Muay Thai is discipline is definitely a big part of it, because it's not like a traditional martial art in the sense of like when I was doing Shaolin Kempo, right? So you have like that whole rank system. You have the belts. You can so that you can get to a black belt. You have all of that. You have the combat stuff you do, but then you also have the katas, and then you also have all of like the culture and history, and this is like the way of the warrior thing. Where what I'm doing with Muay Thai right now is a lot more sports related, in its essence, and you can still find those things and bring out those things in the sports dynamic of it. But I think where the discipline parts of it really like shines, or where it's really imparted to you to help you train your discipline, is when you're doing more of like the traditional styles of anything. Like even if you were to just go and do a more traditional style of Muay Thai, like right now it's kind of like, you have the traditional Taekwondo, which you might be able to use to defend yourself. I'm a little bit biased. Don't really like Taekwondo. They have some amazing kicks, but um, where in comparison, like to the sports Taekwondo, like sportsmanship Taekwondo, like they don't really use their hands. Their hands are there. They kind of like use them to push off the other person, or block something, or just kind of like to distract. But it's all about the kicks. It's all about scoring those points with the kicks. And so similarly, like Muay Thai right now that I'm doing, it's more about the sports side about it. But my discipline that I have from being in the Marine Corps, my discipline that I have from doing the more traditional styles of martial arts now plays into, okay, if I'm getting ready to fight, like how disciplined am I going to be? How disciplined am I going to be to do the training that I need to? Am I doing my road work? Am I practicing my kicks and punches every day? Like, oh, I didn't go to class and I didn't go to sparring. Am I now finding a way to incorporate what I need to make sure I'm still on the top of my game and in peak condition to perform? So I think that plays into it. So like whether you're doing sports or traditional, if you don't have that, then it shows when it becomes crunch time.
So it's just like acting class in a way too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Got to get your reps in.
Got to get your reps in. So many people get to advance and it's like, I haven't done repetition in over a year. And I'm like, I'm bad about that too, but listen, you got to get your reps in. You got to get your reps in. So like Holly likes to say, it's like, how many hours a day are you training your acting? How many hours a day are you training your acting? Because for an Olympian, right, they train for how long? 4 years?
Yeah.
For one competition, right? How many hours are they training for every day for 4 years for one competition? So it's like, how many hours a day are you training your acting? Right? And I love that, and I hate it because it puts, it shows you too. Because sometimes we get busy with things, and it's like, but if this is what you really want to do, you got to find that time. You got to be disciplined.
Yeah, so now it's all coming together. So you're built for acting, man. Like really, I mean, when you think, because you do have to be disciplined, and I think that's one thing. I know I found out more out here. I'm like, you just show up and start acting and stuff. It's like, no, there's not just discipline on working on the craft, but discipline on the business end of the craft. Like you were talking about, trying to get a theatrical agent, trying to get it, getting managers and all that. That in itself is a discipline, which is crazy. So my hat's off to everyone putting in that type of work.
For
real. It's a lot.
Yeah, especially because there's so many people doing it, and there's like so much ambiguity, or it's like you have to have like all this experience in order to get into certain agencies, that it could just like be disheartening. Like, you write this email and then you never hear anything back from these people. Just like with auditions, it's like, for me, it's like you have to fire and forget. You do your audition, you put yourself into it, you do as best you can, you have fun doing it, and then you submit and you forget. Like, don't hold on to it, because there's so many factors that go into casting, so many factors that go into production. Like, sometimes things just get canceled. You're here thinking like, oh, I wasn't good enough. Like, no, they didn't have it together, and that whole production is gone. Like, nobody got picked, you know? It's like, maybe you were the one that got picked, and then something fell through, and then they had to cancel the whole project. So it's like, you just have to do that, fire and forget. So
that's a clip right there. That's a clip. I like that, fire and forget. There's another saying. I got this from the Joe Rogan of all people, on social media. Instead of, you get sucked on doom scrolling and all that, he's like, post and ghost. It's like, post your post and get off.
yeah.
But no, that's a good way to look at it, because in a lot of things in life too. And I never thought of that one. Like, maybe the production didn't even go through, with a lot of things. But yeah, no, hats off to, you used to do a lot of self-submitting stuff too.
Yeah.
Like on Actors Access. And
that's why I haven't been like too pressed about my theatrical agent, because I've booked, I think at this point, 4 feature films by myself. Well, nope. Shout out to my man, Mike. He might not see this, but so on one of them that I had self-submitted for, a feature film that I had actually self-submitted for, and got a role for, I met him on that project. And then while he was doing a different one, he got picked up for a different project, and he was reading through the script, and he was like, Samuel will be perfect for this. We've done this role together before. This is almost the same dynamic. And he put my name forward to the directors and got me an audition. So, and then, I took it from there. But yeah, I've done like 4 feature films without representation. So while it's like, I wish I had representation to get me more access to more exclusive auditions and doing those things, at the same time, like, I know I can work, and I know I can do the work to get the work.
And I have a couple of, this has been great, man. Like, it's been great. It's always, these podcasts are always a treat, because you don't know what you're going to learn, what you're going to find out. So I got a question for the future, and I got a question taking it back real quick. I'll take it back real quick. This discipline that you have, is that something you just always had, like, naturally? Or can you think back, was there a time where, I don't know, you're like, I'm going to be this way? Or have you always just kind of been this way? Because the things you have done, you cannot be lazy to do. Like, you have to not only be able to work hard, but have so many other discipline of the mind, discipline of a lot of things.
So I think my discipline comes from 2 things. The first one, most important, is from my mom. Shout out to my mom, Jessie. Is just the upbringing that she gave me. Shout out to my dad too. He's in my younger years, he was supporting us from afar. So we were living in one area, and then he was living in another state, and through that, him working there, because he had a very good job there, he couldn't be with us for the earlier years of my life, so that he could be there to support us. So shout out to my dad too, because even just knowing that he was doing that and had that discipline, like, that impacted how I viewed hard work as well. So shout out to both my parents. But and then the second one is going to be my more nerdy side, believe it or not. So this goes back to really liking martial arts. I got into this phase where I was reading these books that just by like happenstance, just like happened to have like a lot of characters that were like assassins or some kind of something that, or detectives or something that needed a lot of discipline in order to do what they did. Like, they had a very serious like attention to detail, and like how the like author would write it, it'd be like the character would be like, would have open their hand, there'd like be jelly beans in their hand or something, and then they close their hand and they ask the character like, "Oh yeah, how many jelly beans were in your hand? Was in my hand?" And he'd be like, "Oh, 5." And it's like, "Okay, cool," or 17 or whatever. It's like, "Okay, now how many of them were blue?" It's like, "Oh, did you pick up on that?" And so it's like it just became like this thing where I was like, "Oh yeah, I just have to be. In order to be like that, in order to be like that ninja guy, I gotta be disciplined. I gotta be focused." And then even still, it would be like these characters that was like from a child to an adult, and so they had like this big training arc. So it's like they had to be disciplined throughout their life to become the level of like warrior that they were, and so that, silly as it is, influenced my discipline as well. And I think with those things, that's even how I like started to get to that mental fortitude, because it was like I was like, okay, like I have to have a strong mind, have to have a strong mind. And so like just picking up on things and like just finding myself uh with like bringing it back to like psychology, like finding myself with once I like got older and started like taking like psychology classes and learning how people think and how the brain works and how all of those things like fit together in society. It was just like, oh, putting all of these pieces together. Oh, I need to do this because I'm going to build these. If I don't do this, it's going to build habits that I don't want. And so it was a discipline that was instilled in me, and then a discipline that I curated because of the things that influenced me and the things that I wanted to try and achieve.
Mm. I love that. And you say you took a lot of psychology classes in college.
Well, yeah, because
I ask because I've been more and more into psychology lately. Like reading, the more you start reading psychology, I swear you don't see the world the same.
yeah,
You really you really get to see, like you said, like, oh no, this is how this works over here, and behaviors influence blah blah blah, and like it's like the matrix opens up.
yeah. I won't say I'm like misunderstood. I won't say that, but it's always been curious to me. If you've ever sat down and someone asks a question, and it's you and another person, or however many other people, and your answers are just so different. And I've always just found that fascinating. I'm like, what route of thoughts, like what pathway did your thought process take to lead you to that answer? Right. And so that's like where I like started like really getting like interested in psychology. Like, how do people think? Like, what influences our thoughts? How do we make these decisions? Like, why do we think this way? Because it's like sometimes it's like your answer is so different from mine. Like, I have no idea how you got to that. And so I found that like fascinating.
Hmm. Man, that isn't. You're reminding me like just how important it is. First of all, to work out your mind, like to strengthen it, sharp it, keep it disciplined, but then also to understand it. Try to understand it at least. And I don't know, it's almost like deconstructing yourself, reverse engineering yourself. Oh, okay, that's where that came from. Or that's why I think that way.
Yeah.
Uh,
Self work is some of the most important work. Like,
mm,
especially for us Meisner actors.
hmm,
If you are too afraid to look into yourself, if you just can't, or if you don't, or additionally, if you don't understand the things that make you tick and what affects you, Meisner's just probably not the style for you, right?
mm,
You might just have to find a different style of acting, because at its I feel, for me personally, like at its core, like that's one of the most important things. Like being able to be self-reflective, being able to understand yourself, what makes you vulnerable, and then having the discipline, having the courage to then bring that out and put that on display for everybody. It's the most important thing. Most important thing. All that other stuff, like you'll learn through practice and repetition. No pun intended. Repetition of just doing it. You'll learn. You'll learn how to read lines, how to say lines so they sound good. But if you don't understand yourself, then there's no way you're gonna understand whatever character you're supposed to be playing.
mm. It goes back to that living truthfully under imaginary circumstances.
Yep.
And when you were studying that in Florida, like right away, we're like, oh yeah, Meisner techniques, what I want to do. And I assume that's how you found Playhouse West. You were looking up.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, even so, they didn't study directly with Sandy, but one of the teachers studied with someone who studied directly with Sandy, and so they had told me about Playhouse West. And initially, when I first came out here too, I was like, oh, like maybe I should try like a different style, which I still want to do. I still want to just, it just everybody takes the things that they need from each style that they do, and different things are used for different things. Like I had a teacher, he's like, oh, when I'm doing like auditions, I more use this, but then when I'm building a life of a character, then I use this. So I definitely still need to broaden my horizons with the different styles of acting that that I just have experience with. But think I can say without a doubt that Meisner will forever like be that base, that foundation that I have that then speaks to how I do everything else.
Okay. Yeah, no, very well put. And I do have the future question, but through the conversation, like Chuck Norris, Bruce Lee, Steven Seagal, did you
watch them all?
Yeah, I was gonna
watch them all.
And you weren't thinking you wanted to be them. You're like, I'm gonna do my thing.
Exactly.
Do you have a favorite?
I love Bruce Lee, but I think my favorite martial artist currently is probably just Donnie Yen. I'm not sure if you have seen Ip Man, but man, the performance in those three movies, it's just like I rarely watch a movie more than once by myself. Right? It generally takes me watching it again with somebody else for me to watch it. But back when I went to Japan, my friend was working on in an internship out there, and I went to Japan to visit him, and that was one of the movies that they had on the flight, and I watched it like both ways, and I usually just sleep. Like Marine Corps, I can sleep anywhere. I'm just like, what, a rock? Thank you. I'm out. And so I usually just sleep on a plane, and that wasn't a short movie either. The first one was not a short movie, but I watched that movie both ways. And him and Jet Li are just, I think, more influence my idea of martial arts. Like I like the greats and the ones that, built everything and like that started that foundation. But not to say that they weren't among them as well. They have both been in the industry for a very long time, but through their catalog of work and from what I've seen, like those two have always been like, I'm like, oh, that's a Jet Li movie, like I'm gonna go see it. Oh, that's a Donnie Yen movie, I'm gonna go see it. Right? And sometimes I don't really have that where it's like I'm just gonna go see a movie because there's an actor in it that I like. But with them, especially like back when they were working more, it was like martial arts movies. Like, who's in it? Yeah, we're gonna go see that.
What does your ideal acting career look like? Like, what is it? Is it what particular path? I mean, is it for you to? I want to be on a TV show. I want to land in a big movie. I want to do anything, everything. I want to specifically play these certain types of roles. Where do you, or at least right now at this moment of time, it can always change, but.
Okay. So I'll break that down in two ways for you and give you a little bit more of my background and even how I came into acting. So like I've said, I've loved the martial arts. Like initially with acting, like it's always been like about action type of movies. Like that's always been like my focus, the thing that I've liked, like, oh, I want to be in something like that. But the very first short film that I did, it was called Gasp, and it was for a project foundation called like Say Something, and basically it's it was a short reflecting on the fact that if for our loved ones, we just need you to say something. Like, we can't help you if you don't say anything. If we don't know that you have a problem, then we can't help you. And so in that short, my wife was bipolar and I didn't know. And something I say just like triggers a really bad incident for her, and she ends up taking her life. And she was pregnant with our child, and the movie is kind of, or the short is like flashbacks as I'm in a psychiatrist's office talking to them. And I didn't cry during the scene where I find like my wife's dead body. There was a lot of other things that went into the reason why why I wasn't like able to cry on command there or whatever. But it wasn't until that I got to that last scene when they asked me if there was something you could do differently, like what would you have done? And in that moment, I very much was living truthfully as that character. And that was the first time like I'd have ever had that experience. And it just like hit me so hard in that scene. And just, we went from there. And from that point, I was like, wow, dramas are cool. I was like, that was an insane experience. Like, I want to have that again. So then my dreams of like how I want my career to go and how I want it to evolve and the types of roles I want to play, like, open the door for me and like just expanded to, action roles are cool and very much still like dream role is Blue Marvel superhero role. But I do also now from that experience just love dramatic work and want to just experience everything. Like I like comedies. Comedies are fun. Doing comedies are fun, but I think action and dramas are just what like really pull me in terms of the art and creatively. So yeah, that's I think kind of what I see what I would want for my catalog. Also, and then it's just like the fantasy aspect of it. Like, I want to go to different planets. I want to play different peoples. I want to see different worlds, different countries, right? So just that's why I think I just like the fantasy thing, because it's just like I can think about what being someone else down the street is like, right? I can see that. I can live that, but it's like when you're going to like these different worlds, different backgrounds, like different ways of thinking, that is just like a whole different kind of journey. And so those roles as well are the ones that I think I'm really drawn to.
Okay, awesome, man. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up while we're talking?
I don't think so.
I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
No, I really enjoyed this conversation, and I always give the guests the last word, but before I do, where can people find you? Where are the best places for them to look you up on the internet?
So remember when I talked about us being a brand? This is where my discipline could come in a little better. I actually don't really social media very much. But you can find me on Instagram you can just search my name actually now. I changed it. You didn't used to be able to, but yeah. So Samuel Selman, or my hashtag, whatever that stuff is, AOW_Genesis. So that's primarily where you'll find me. I don't really do as much on social media as I should, which I'll probably do is my next thing after my theatrical agent. Once I get that squared away, then I'll focus more on developing that whole side of me. It is important. So yeah, it's definitely something I need to work on.
Yeah, but it keeps you interesting though, because like I said, there's so much about you I did not know because you don't post everything, and I think that's a good thing too. Like I think sometimes just the posting is just exhausting, and it's becoming worse and worse too because got to keep up with the algorithm. And this person over here is posting this much. You got to be doing it. So good for you.
Yeah. Have to have some mystery like Denzel, you know what I'm saying? Like he's posting everything. So
yeah. Well, Samuel, thank you so much. I always give the guests the last word. It can be as deep. And I'm sorry, Eric, did you have anything?
No, man, that's cool. I mean, I was going to ask what the bilateral training was like with the other countries. Screw it. So I guess I am asking that. What is that like? Like, because obviously, are they trained the same way? Are you actually training them, or are you just kind of like, hey, sport, you're holding that gun upside down? That's clearly a joke. But like, what is it like?
I mean, it just depends on what country you're in, and where you're at. A lot of it is really just building the friendships between those nations. Like even with me going to Australia and us having a base or having a station in Australia is really like a show of force on the national stage, because now it's like if we are able to have a base in this place, that means we can launch missiles from this place. And so now, yeah, we couldn't reach you with our missiles from America, but we can reach you with our missiles from over here. But in terms of like the training, yeah, so what you'll do is you will like exchange weapon systems, right? So as 0351, we specialize with the small, which is actually, funny enough, not even an American designed rocket launcher. It's Israeli. So we use the SMA. And so for instance, when I was in Australia, we would cross train with that. Like I taught them how to use the SMA. And then additionally, we would do training operations. So I like to call it performance punishment for doing well. So when we were in Australia, before we went to Australia, at our camp, we did a squad comp, and it was like this, I don't know, 8 to 10 hour competition where you're just running all across the base, doing all types of different ranges, doing all types of different things, land nav, shooting drills, carrying, hiking, all kinds of stuff. And my company won that squad comp. So when we went to Australia, we then went to Queensland and detached from the rest of our group, and we did a 10-day training op with the Australians. And so then you go and you guys operate and you mix forces, and then you guys do whatever kind of training that they'll have you do.
Like they'll simulate something,
yep.
And then you'll be with them, like kind of like, okay, you're my partner for this, even though you're in the Australian military.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So you integrate with them. And then what we also like to do is, once again, the performance punishment. I had to do what's essentially their corporal's course. So when you pick up any NCO rank, there's a training course for that rank that you have to go to. And I did the one for the integrated with the Australians and went through their course there. And so I got to see how they do their whole leadership courses and training, and what like mental, physical requirements. I had to pass all of their stuff too.
Interesting. That's really cool.
I say performance punishment because while I was doing that, like the rest of my unit got like liberty. So my friends are like going out to Brisbane and doing all this stuff and like having fun. I'm like, oh, I'm in the field doing 3 days of no food, no sleep. Okay.
No Would food? You get extra money for that or anything like that? Or no?
No. But at the same time, you're not mad at it because those things show well on your record and help with promotions and things of that nature.
And with what you were trying to do at the time, the better probably accolades and decorated resume you had, it's just going to work in your favor.
Yeah. No, I definitely enjoyed my time doing that cross training with them, and I joke about it being performance punishment, but it was definitely something that benefited me. So.
You just said something. I promise I won't go too far into it because this would be a whole other podcast topic. But the whole with the bases being all around the world, and you said, well, we can't shoot missiles from here, but if we have bases here, here, and here, we can shoot them from there. So it kind of makes sense why there might be bases all over.
Yep. Yeah, I think that one was a show force for China. It was like, hey, we can reach you with things from here, from Australia.
Right, right. Okay. And last word. It can be as deep or as shallow as you want. It can be just a simple peace out. What do you want to leave us with?
I'll leave you with the saying from the Los Angeles Film School. I don't know if it's necessarily it's saying or not, but it's on one of the T-shirts that I have, and combine that with one other, and it's just stay creative and always be creating. Right? I think whether you're doing something to actually put it out, you're developing something to actually put it out, or you're just working on something that you're just going to put in a book and slide to the side and keep it to yourself, and it's never going to see the light of day. I think stay creative.
I love that. Samuel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Sam Dever, the Sam Dever Podcast here, and I just want to thank you for checking out this episode. To watch and listen to future episodes, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. Thank you so much. See you soon.